Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Dr.Barki's Ophthalmology Tutorials. So today we will discuss about Entropion. Most of the MBBS students will skip this chapter or they don't understand the pathophysiology or the surgical aspect because of the complicated structure of the eyelid. They finally end up in mucking up the things and they will not be able to reproduce the same in the examination. From undergraduates, we don't expect them to be perfect in surgical part. If they know about the names of the surgery and the principle behind these Entropion surgeries, that's more than enough. They need not know everything in detail. And as an MBBS graduate, one should be able to diagnose Entropion or Ectropion, and they should be able to assess whether the symptoms the patient presenting with, like the epiphora or foreign body sensation or non-healing ulcer, are these because of the Entropion or the Ectropion, that they should be able to make a diagnosis. And then they can refer the patient to the specialist, ophthalmologist or even the oculoplasty specialist for further management with appropriate medical treatment. So in this video, I will be discussing about the clinical anatomy of the eyelid, followed by the types of the Entropion, the pathophysiological aspect, as well as the surgical management. So without much delay, let's begin the video. So I will first explain the words which are frequently used in pathophysiology and even the surgical part. So the first one is the anterior and the posterior laminae. So as you know, the skin and the underlying orbicularis oculi muscle, these two will constitute the anterior laminae, and the tarsal plate along with the posterior conjunctiva, that is the palpebral conjunctiva, constitute the posterior lamina. Okay, so the anterior lamina is from the skin and the orbicularis oculi. The posterior lamina is from the tarsal plate and the palpebral conjunctiva. And the second thing is the medial canthal tendon and the lateral canthal tendon. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, this is the tarsal plate, upper tarsal plate and the lower tarsal plate. Here you can see the medial canthal tendon. Okay, the yellow part is the medial canthal tendon. So the medial canthal tendon as the anterior limb, the posterior limb as well as the superior limb. It is little complicated to know about in detail about the medial canthal tendon. Just remember, there is medial canthal tendon which is attaching to the maxillary bone on the medial side, whereas laterally it is almost attached to the tarsal plate under the orbicularis oculi muscle and even the LPS muscle. Laterally we have lateral canthal tendon. Okay, so the lateral canthal tendon, it is also getting attached to the orbital tubercle or the Whitnall's tubercle on the lateral wall, lateral orbital wall. Medially again it is attached to the tarsal plate. So it will keep the medial and the lateral canthal tendon will keep the tarsal plate in its place. So it is tightly opposed to the globe, thereby preventing the ectropion or entropion. So the next terminology which is frequently used is eyelid retractors. So in the upper eyelid, you know, the eyelid retractors are LPS muscle, that is levator palpebrae superioris muscle, and the molars muscle. In the lower eyelid, the analogous structure for LPS is the lower lid retractor, or also called as the capsulopalpebral fascia, which is nothing but the facial extension from the inferior rectus muscle as well as the inferior oblique muscle. They together form some facial extension which is getting attached to the tarsal plate inferiorly, similar to the LPS in the upper eyelid. So this is called as the lower eyelid. This is called as the lower eyelid retractor. Okay. So this keeps the tarsal plate in position, gives the support from below, thereby preventing entropion or ectropion. So hope all these terminologies are clear to you. That is anterior lamina and the posterior lamina. Anterior lamina is nothing but the skin and the underlying orbicularis oculi muscle. The posterior lamina is tarsal plate and the palpebral conjunctiva. The next was the medial canthal tendon and the lateral canthal tendon, which were attaching medially or centrally towards the tarsal plate, and laterally, that is the medial canthal tendon attaching to the maxillary bone and the lateral canthal tendon attaching to the orbital tubercle. And the third is the eyelid retractors. In the upper eyelid, the LPS muscle and the molars muscle are the retractors. In the lower eyelid, it is the capsulopalpebral fascia or the lower eyelid retractor, which is nothing but the facial extension of inferior rectus and the inferior oblique muscle. So now let's see what are the forces which keep the eyelid in its normal position. The first, as I told, the anterior lamina and the posterior lamina. That is, there should be equal tone and the length of the anterior lamina and the posterior lamina. If there is any disparity, may lead to entropion or ectropion. Okay. And the second force is the medial canthal tendon and the lateral canthal tendon, which are keeping the tarsal plate in tight normal position, thereby preventing entropion or ectropion. The third is the inferior lid retractor, which is attached to the tarsal plate from below and keeps the eyelid in the normal position by giving the vertical stability to the eyelid. And the fourth one is the orbicular circular muscle with its normal functioning connective tissue, thereby keeping the muscle in its position. The fifth one is the normal content of the orbit. Especially in case of entropion, if there is shrinkage of the orbital content, it can give rise to entropion. So next, coming to the definition of entropion. Students will usually get confused by the very definition, whether the entropion is inward turning or outward turning. That is the most confusing part first. So just see the word N here. So entropion is nothing but inward turning. Just you can keep it as a mnemonic. So entropion is inward turning of the eyelids. So coming to the types, we have 4 types, that is involutional or the senile, which is secondary to the age related changes. The second one is cicatricial type of entropion, third is the spastic entropion, and fourth is the congenital entropion. So coming to the involutional entropion and the pathophysiology behind the involutional entropion. So I will first explain the diagram. This is the upper eyelid, this is the lower eyelid. We have removed the skin, the next layer, that is the orbicular circular muscle, and the next layer is the tarsal plate with its inferior lid retractors. You can see the medial canthal tendon attachment and the lateral canthal tendon attachment. So first let's name the parts. Medial canthal tendon, lateral canthal tendon, this is the tarsal plate, this is inferior lid retractor. Okay. So what is the pathophysiology here? If there is laxity in the medial canthal tendon and the lateral canthal tendon, it will not help in keeping the tarsal plate in its position. Okay. So the best example in this COVID time is the mask. So if you take these two as the medial canthal tendon and the lateral canthal tendon, when it is tight, it is keeping the tarsal plate in its position, and when it is lax, it is going back or coming in depending upon the muscle strength. Okay, so that is one thing, that is horizontal lid laxity. That is the horizontal lid laxity. That is the first mechanism of involutional entropion. The second is the inferior lid retractor or the capsulopalpebral fascia, which is attaching to the inferior border of the tarsal plate and giving the vertical stability to the eyelid. So if there is any weakness in this or the complete disinsertion of this from the tarsal plate, so obviously the tarsal plate will not be in its position because of vertical instability. So the second mechanism is the vertical instability because of inferior lid retractors. So third mechanism is by the orbicular circular muscle. So if you just imagine the layer over this is the pretarsal part of the orbicular circular muscle, and this is the preseptal part. The pretarsal part is attached to the tarsal plate, and below lies the preseptal part. So what happens here is the preseptal part, which is below the tarsal part, goes and presses over the pretarsal part. So there is overriding of the pretarsal part by preseptal. Okay, so there is bending of the tarsal plate here. So the inferior half comes out and the superior half goes in, leading to entropion. So this is the third and most important mechanism in the involutional entropion. So the third mechanism is the overriding of the preseptal part. So the fourth is the orbital septum itself can be malfunctioning. So the next layer attached to this is the orbital septum. If there is any dehiscence in the orbital septum, the fat which was lying behind, that is the orbital fat which is lying behind, will come and seep in the lower eyelid, thereby leading to entropion. Okay. And the fifth is the orbital content. So because of the involutional changes, there can be atrophy of the orbital fat, thereby the support to the eyelid is lost to some extent, leading to entropion. These are the 5 mechanisms which will lead to involutional entropion. The first is the horizontal lid laxity because of the weak medial canthal tendon and the lateral canthal tendon. Second is vertical instability because of the weak inferior lid retractors, that is capsulopalpebral fascia, which can be weak or there can be complete dehiscence from the tarsal plate. The third mechanism is overriding of the preseptal muscle on the pretarsal. The fourth is the orbital septum itself can be deficient, leading to herniation of the fat into the lower eyelid. And the fifth is the age-related changes leading to orbital fat atrophy. Okay. So moving on to the treatment options, the mainstay of treatment is surgery, but still medical treatment has some role. Like the patient symptoms like dry eye symptoms or pricking sensation can be decreased with your lubricating eye drops and lubricating eye ointment, and you can also give topical antibiotics to reduce the secondary infections if the cornea is involved. There is also some temporary treatment by using micropore plaster. Just pull the lower eyelid and put the plaster. So it will temporarily make the patient better. But the definitive treatment is always surgery. Surgery we can divide depending upon the pathological process. So if there is horizontal laxity, the treatment options are lateral tarsal strip or full thickness lateral pentagon excision, also called as BICKS procedure. This is when the horizontal lid laxity is more. If there is overriding of the preseptal orbicularis muscle, then go for transverse everting sutures or Weis procedure. And if the lower lid retractors are disinserted or if there is any dehiscence, then you can go for plication of lower lid retractors. And one more procedure is, the last procedure is Quickert procedure. Okay. So coming to lateral tarsal strip. As you can see in this picture, this is the tarsal plate which is shown in the yellow thing. So there is horizontal lid laxity. So the horizontally it is widened. So here we are trying to pull out the tarsal plate. Okay. So for that, first you should do lateral canthotomy, that is just divide at the skin, then lateral cantholysis followed by exposure of your tarsal plate. That is done by blunt dissection, which is carried out below your skin and orbicularis muscle anteriorly, and posteriorly you are separating the conjunctiva. Thereby you are exposing this strip of the tarsal plate. Then the excess of the tarsal plate can be cut, or you can directly suture some point here to the periosteum of the lateral orbital wall. Okay. So if this is the lateral orbital wall, there is periosteum all over here. So you can suture this part to the periosteum. Thereby you are straightening the lower lid. Okay. So the horizontal lid laxity is corrected. So this is how it finally looks. Okay. Even the excess of skin can also be excised. This is about lateral tarsal strip. And one more procedure in this procedure you are taking an inverted house-like incision or pentagon incision. This is full thickness incision from the conjunctiva to the skin, followed by opposition of the respective layers. Skin is sutured to skin, then the tarsal plate is sutured to the corresponding tarsal plate, and then the conjunctiva is sutured. So this is how it looks finally. And transverse everting suture, which is used when there is overriding of the preseptal muscle. The principle is it tightens the lower lid retractors. This is the lower lid retractor. So this is tightened here. The procedure is by using 50 chromic catgut. Here chromic catgut is specifically mentioned because it will create more reaction, thereby creating a barrier here again. So here the needle is passed from the conjunctival side towards the skin just below the tarsal plate, and then it is taken near the skin. But when you are taking the needle out from the skin, just pull the skin little bit down. Thereby you are stretching the skin, and when you put the knot and tighten it, the lid will automatically evert. Weis procedure. Here the principle is transverse lid split prevents the upward movement of the preseptal muscle, and the everting sutures shorten the retractors. So both horizontal lid split is done along with the everting sutures. So the procedure is, first put an incision 4 mm below the lid margin, full thickness incision from the skin to the conjunctiva, then the everting sutures are placed. So these are the everting sutures, that is mattress type of sutures, which pass through the lower cut end of the tarsus and then emerge on the skin 1 mm just below the lid margin in the pretarsal plane, that is anterior to the tarsus. And when you tie the sutures, this is how it looks, and correct the entropion. Next procedure is Jones procedure. Here the principle is shortening of the retractors to create a barrier to the upward movement of the preseptal muscle, and it is indicated in case of severe cases and if there is recurrence of the entropion. As you know, this is done for lax lower lid retractors, that is there can be either laxity of the lower eyelid retractors or even there can be dehiscence of the lower eyelid retractors. So the procedure is a horizontal incision is placed below the lower eyelid extending from the lateral canthus to the junction of inner 1/3 and the medial 1/3 around 4 to 5 mm below the lid margin. So this is not complete full thickness incision. The conjunctiva is left behind. You are just exposing the lower lid retractors here. Okay. So this is the lower lid retractor which is shown in the pink color. So then the suturing is done. First the suture is passed from the skin through the lower eyelid retractors. That is, the first bite is almost 8 mm from the tarsal plate, and then the needle is passed through the retractors at the level of the lower part of the tarsal plate. Okay, so you are just double breasting the lower eyelid retractor here. So when you tighten the knot here, this is how it looks. It is almost shortening the lower lid retractors and making it tight. Thereby it is giving firm strength to the tarsal plate. This is about Jones procedure. The next procedure is Quickert procedure, which includes combination of horizontal lid shortening as well as Weis procedure. The principle again here is the transverse lid split prevents the upward movement of the preseptal orbicularis muscle, and the everting sutures shorten the retractors. So the procedure is we put both vertical and the horizontal incision. The vertical incision, you know, as in the horizontal lid shortening, we put full thickness incision like this, pentagon incision, followed by approximation of the respective layers, followed by Weis procedure, where you are placing a horizontal incision which is full thickness incision around 4 mm below the eyelid margin, followed by placing the mattress sutures which are passed through the lower content of the tarsus to emerge on the skin 1 mm below the lid margin. So you place 3 such horizontal incision followed by the closure of the skin. This is about Quickert procedure. All these are the surgical procedures for involutional entropion. So coming to the next type of entropion, that is cicatricial type of entropion. It is very easy to understand this. There is disparity between the anterior and the posterior lamina here. There will be cicatricial changes in the palpebral conjunctiva as well as there will be changes in the tarsal plate. That is mainly in the posterior lamina of the eyelid, leading to the entropion. Okay, whenever there is contraction there, the eyelid will turn in. So what are the causes? The causes are trachoma. This is the most common cause and leading to the severe type of entropion. Then ocular cicatricial pemphigoid, chemical injuries of the eyelids, and even the Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Trachoma is important here because it is not only giving rise to changes in the palpebral conjunctiva, it is also leading to distortion of the tarsal plate because of atrophy or hypertrophy of the tarsal plate. Okay, so this is about cicatricial entropion. So coming to the next type, that is the spastic entropion. It occurs invariably in the lower eyelid. It occurs secondary to some irritation of the eye. That is, there can be irritation secondary to trauma or secondary to inflammation. So whenever there is some irritation of the eye, the orbicularis ocular muscle tends to contract. That is the reflex spasm what we see. But in all cases there is no entropion. So there is loss of the posterior support here. So as you see, so this is how it is. So this is the tarsal plate and this is the lower eyelid aponeurosis. So if this is degenerative, if there is no strength in this, whenever this orbicularis oculi forcefully contracts, it tends to push this tarsal plate inside, leading to entropion. Okay. So this is about the spastic entropion. Means there should be components of both degeneration of the aponeurosis as well as the forceful contraction of the orbicularis. So that leads to spastic entropion. And the last one is the congenital. So here there is congenital deformities with the tarsal plate itself, or there can be dysgenesis of the inferior lid retractors leading to the congenital entropion. What these patients present with, the entropion will lead to inward turning of the eyelashes, so the eyelashes keep touching the anterior surface of the eye, leading to all your symptoms of dry eyes, irritation, pricking, grittiness, and even it can lead to inferior corneal ulcer. Means the symptoms are almost similar to the patients of trichiasis. Just differentiate whether it is because of trichiasis or entropion. So those are the symptoms patient will present with. And in signs, you can elicit the abnormal position of the eyelid itself. So for the cicatricial entropion, the surgical options are tarsal wedge resection and the tarsal fracture. Even the posterolamellar graft can be done. So here in the tarsal wedge resection, sorry, this is eyelash is wrongly written here. So this comes here eyelash. Okay. So the procedure of the tarsal wedge resection, here a horizontal skin incision is taken like this, which is almost 3 mm away from the lid margin. Then a wedge resection is done in the tarsal plate for the height of 3 millimeters and to the depth of 3/4 of the tarsal plate thickness. Cuttage is approximated by using double arm suture, which are passed through two edges and then between the tarsus and the orbicularis oculi muscle to a point just above the lashes to avert the eyelash. So this is about the tarsal wedge resection. Next procedure is tarsal fracture. Here first the eyelid is everted over the metal spatula to expose the conjunctiva. On the conjunctival side, almost in the sulcus subtarsalis part, that is, if you avoid the conjunctiva like this, and these are the eyelashes, almost just below 1 to 2 mm below the eyelash line will be your sulcus subtarsalis. So here a horizontal incision is placed on the conjunctiva, completely passing through the tarsal plate. You are touching the tarsal plate here, okay, and then 3 to 5 horizontal mattress sutures are passed through the tarsal edge and then taken out through the skin. Okay, so here it is explained, that is 3 to 4 horizontal mattress sutures are passed through the tarsal plate and then taken out through the skin as near to the lid margin as possible and then tightened, thus bending the lid margin forward and in the upward direction. One more treatment option was posterior lamellar graft, which can be done, that is the conjunctiva is replaced by the buccal mucosa when there is severe cicatricial changes in the conjunctival side. Next, coming to treatment option of the spastic entropion. Here try to treat the cause first. If there is any ocular inflammation, treat that. If there is the tight bandage which is the cause for the spastic entropion, you should remove that bandage and see. That will only treat the spastic entropion. In other cases, you can give botulinum toxin injection to the orbicularis oculi, thereby preventing the spasm. And in the congenital entropion, depending upon the deformity what the patient is having, where the problem is, the appropriate surgical procedures can be applied. So these are about the surgical management of the entropion.